Hello, everybody. Welcome. Welcome to our show of Making Meaning Again live show. My name is Natalia Girón, and I am your host. I am a Spanish interpreter, but I'm also a member of the talent acquisition team. Now, here with me on video, we have Sasha, who's interpreting and also co interpreting with Sean. Thank you to both, because without you, we would not be able to get this through today. Thank you. Thank you very much. To the folks at home, please, we have a chat here. We would love to hear from you. Let us know where you're joining us from. We would want to hear your questions, your comments, and we're going to get to them as we go along. Today's topic is actually a very interesting one. It's a very important one to us interpreters. It's the Code of Ethics for Healthcare Interpreters. We're going to be diving deep into insight about the Code of Ethics for medical interpreters and how it has evolved along with the profession. We're going to talk about the Code of Ethics, the overview, the ethics in practice, the evolution of the code, and some stories from the field. Now remember, if you want to be a member of the AMN team, the most important thing to keep in mind is to apply now. amnhealthcare.com/interpreters. And I'm going to be saying that along as we go along. So to be able to talk about the Code of Ethics, we have a great panel that have decided to join us, and we're very pleased to have them. So without much further ado, let's bring out our great panel of guests. Hello, ladies. Welcome, and thank you. Thank you for being us. You are the experts. You're going to be helping us out. So let's take some time and take some time to introduce yourselves. We would love to hear who you are. Elsa, let's begin with you. I think you're on mute. It's quite all right.
Okay, my name is Elsa Ugarte. I am a Portuguese interpreter. I have been with AMN for just about 4 years, and I'm a mom of a 5-year-old now, and I really have a passion for interpreting and for helping people.
Thank you, Elsa, and I know you do it very well. Elsa is one of our very good interpreters. Thank you. Lorena, tell us about yourself.
Yes, I'm also a Spanish interpreter, also ASL interpreter, so I am trilingual. I've been working with AMN for a long time, over 10 years, and I also have a 5-year-old, so Elsa, I relate to you. Currently, I work as the instructional design manager, which just basically means I support a team of instructional designers to develop ongoing training for interpreters at AMN.
Thank you, Lorena. Very qualified member indeed. And Samantha, tell us about you.
Hi, everyone. My name is Samantha Ryan. I have been with AMN for about 7.5 years. I've been with talent acquisition, specifically on the language services side, for about 5 years. I will soon be relating to our panel as well because I am a soon-to-be mom. So thanks for being here.
Thank you, and congratulations, Sam, on that upcoming baby. We're all very happy for you. We already have some people joining in. We have Asmoth Ullah from Bangladesh, Rohingya medical interpreter. And Jennifer Rodriguez is also joining us from Costa Rica. So thank you, Jennifer, for taking some time to join us today. And please, everybody, just tell us where you're watching us from. We really do want to hear from you. Okay, so let's get to it today. Let's start talking about the topic and meeting the panel. We're going to begin with Lorena. Can you tell us about your love for language and how that has impacted your career?
What a great question. So I didn't start out loving languages. It wasn't something that I woke up one day and was like, I'm going to learn ASL. It actually happened because I wanted to meet and connect with others. Connecting with the deaf community was such an amazing experience for me. And then I realized, hey, I need to learn this language so that we can understand each other. And so that informed my other decisions. And what I've realized over time is that languages, learning the words itself is not necessarily pleasant. It sometimes takes a lot of work, but I think the outcome of connecting to various cultures and seeing things from different perspectives, that's really what brings a lot of joy and connection. And it allows us to do important things like, in my case, volunteer work, but also work in doing things that I love and working with people that I really love.
Yeah, that's a great insight about languages, and it's so, so true. Yeah, thank you for sharing that. Elsa, can you take us through your journey to becoming an interpreter in the healthcare field?
So I became an interpreter, as a lot of interpreters, by coincidence. It wasn't something that I planned. I didn't study in the university or go to college for interpreting. I am also trilingual, like Lorena. I was raised moving around the world. So at a very young age, I had the opportunity of living in Brazil. So I'm fluent in Portuguese, but I'm originally from Peru. So at home, we speak Spanish. And then I lived here in the US as a teenager, and I went to college here. So I've lived in many countries. And my mom did something wonderful for us, which is she made sure that whichever country we lived in, we were in an American school to make sure that we didn't learn a little bit of this, a little bit of that, and a little bit of this. But she wanted us to have really clear languages, so Spanish and English. And because we spent a lot of time in Brazil, I learned Portuguese. And I always felt the need of wanting to do something with my languages. And I met another medical interpreter, and I thought it was fantastic. And I really I've always had this calling to try to help. And there's this moment when you walk into the session or when you join the session virtually where you can see the tension in the LEP's body, and then they'll hear your introduction in English. And then when they hear you speak in their language, there's this like, this moment of total relief, like, oh, someone's here to help me. And that was my hook. And I was hooked ever since.
Yeah, well, mom did a good job. Moms always know best. So yeah, it's good that you are trained. Sam, what's the best part about supporting the talent acquisition team in their quest to find qualified interpreters to join our team?
There are so many amazing parts about being part of the talent acquisition team and having that support role here. But one of the best things about it is just knowing that in this role here, we are impacting people's lives in such a positive way because we are making sure that we are putting the best person out there to help interpret for these patients' needs, limited English, whoever it is, they are still such an important part of the medical field. And you just know that in this part, you're doing good and you're helping someone.
That's true. So it's finding about the right fit. Everybody needs to fit the right interpreter with the profession. We have more people joining us, which is very good. And we have Chiria from Utah. Tanya is joining us from Mexico, and HSO, so from it's currently joining us from Houston. So thank you very much. So let's get to it. Let's talk about the code of ethics, which is like the backbone of the interpreting career. So it's a pretty complex subject, but we have the experts here, so that's a good thing. I feel relieved. So Lorena, let's begin with you. Can you provide like a high level overview of the code of ethics for healthcare interpreters?
Yeah, so interpreters in healthcare, we've had this wonderful tool, and I should say two tools, but I'll refer to just the Code of Ethics, which was published in 2004. So it was a long, more than 20 years ago. And the work group back then really set out to create a foundational document that reflected the realities of interpreters then, which was really difficult because they were still trying to figure out what is the work of an interpreter. There was a lot of ad hoc or family members interpreting. So there was no Zoom or internet back then. And so the work group had to drive out to various parts of the United States and really find out, okay, what are interpreters doing? And how can we develop a code of ethics that creates shared expectations that, one, helps the interpreting community go, yeah, this is what we do. But two, to be able to provide a document to users, people who interact with interpreters that go, oh, what can I expect when I work with an interpreter in healthcare? So it kind of worked both ways for interpreters, but also for those who work with interpreters.
Yes, it's true. It has gone a long way. In the beginning, like you mentioned, it started very much like ad hoc, and then we've come along. So thank you for sharing that. Elsa, how can candidates who are just getting started, just beginning within their careers, get more familiar with the 9 principles and how to use them in practice? I mean, any training programs you would recommend?
There are many excellent training programs. I think the bottom line is get the training, find out from the organizations that you want to work for what is required. And once you're in the training, really hone in on trying to apply those principles. So not just when we study, just kind of learning what they say and memorizing, but more so exactly how to apply it concretely in real world examples.
Yes, thank you. Thank you. It's true. Not necessarily translating, but interpreting. It's a little bit different. We have some questions here from the audience about what languages we're currently recruiting. So Sam, could you help me with that? Could you let the audience know what we're looking for?
Yeah, so we are in need for some Spanish interpreters coming out of Mexico, also Mandarin interpreters coming out of Mexico as well.
Oh, we lost Sam.
If you are a Rohingya interpreter, then please reach out to us because we really need you guys here as well.
Yes. And just to clarify, we need Rohingya from the US as much as possible. Please feel free to apply. And again, amnhealthcare.com/interpreters. I'm going to be saying that a lot. Really, I am. Just so that you cannot tell me you're going to forget. Sam, I have a question for you. Now, familiarity with the Code of Ethics is one of the requirements for candidates coming on board to AMN. So, I mean, how do you go about ensuring that candidates have that qualification under their belts? Like, it is a qualification requirement.
Yeah, good question. So our candidates are going to go through a pretty intense interviewing process. And there's going to be different points along the way that we are going to kind of screen them and ask these questions to make sure that they have a really good understanding of the Code of Ethics. And I'll probably talk about that a little bit more here. So I'm going to save that. So keep with us so you can hear a little bit more about the interviewing process.
Okay, yes. We're really interested about that. And I have a person here, so Al-Safir, who's asking, is there an email where we can reach out to us or the AMN team? It's a platform, amnhealthcare.com/interpreters. Please apply. At some point, we're going to get back to you. But yes, we're very much open to receiving your applications. So let's get to the evolution of the code. Lorena, the NCIHC has just released like a proposed draft, in a sense, of the National Code of Ethics for Interpreters in Healthcare. Now, what is new? And how has it evolved with the profession? Tell us about, like, is there any sort of new values or principles? What's new?
Yes, so it is proposed. So it's not finalized yet. But thinking about what is new, the proposed code that went out recently, there was a survey with the proposed code. So I think everybody in the field has seen it. The goal was to honor the foundational work that the original work group did, but also to ensure that it reflected current realities of the work of the interpreter. So if we think about 20 years ago, 20 years plus, we can see a big difference because back then there was a lot of on-site interpreting, but now we have video technology. We leverage technology to interpret, whether it's OPI or video, and those changes really affected the work of the interpreter. We also think about the evolution of medicine. There's so much that has in medicine when we think about telemedicine. So medicine has also been leveraging technology at the same time as our profession. So that's another reality, that when the original code was created, it still did a good job at helping us as interpreters make decisions, but it was lacking maybe some structure on how to make those decisions in situations where it wasn't very clear how to apply a certain standard or how to apply a value. So that's sort of where we are now. As far as the new principles that are proposed, we can see accuracy and completeness. The new one, I think, is one of the ones that has been discussed in the survey, which was effective communication. Confidentiality has been there since the beginning, and I think that is a core principle for us, and it's most likely not going to change. Another new principle was equitable practice. So equitable practice was talking about the interpreters biases, being able to provide an equitable practice in the sense that they're going to mitigate their own preferences and at the same time focus on the patient, focus on the situation so that they can adapt their strategies to match the needs of that particular session. Again, it is in final, so we might see some changes there, but in the past, equitable practice was impartiality. There's a couple of other changes in the proposed code. I think in general, the goal is to see the code not as a new draft, but as a revision that reflects the experience that interpreters have now, including there's another principle there on health and wellness. I think that is a topic that many interpreters talk about because of VRI. There's this need to go, hey, what do I really need to take care of myself? And then also in medicine, I mean, there's some situations that are really hard and leave a lot of residue. And so being able to navigate some of that exposure is also really important for interpreters. So that's also in the proposed draft, a principle, a concept that was raised to a principle. So there's so many more updates. I wish I could go on and on and on, but that's sort of the gist of it. Values are still there. Standards of practice are still there. Principles are there and standards of practice are still there. So very similar to the beginning with that additional concept that kind of doesn't expand the work of the interpreter, but I think it really helps current interpreters to show that flexibility that they need.
Well, it's great that they take in that human factor, that everything is constantly changing and technology is constantly changing. We're all constantly changing, so it has to adapt. So yeah, thank you. Thank you for sharing that. We have Asmat Ullah that's asking currently if we're able to recruit remotely from Bangladesh for Rohingya for medical interpreters. Sam, you want to take this one?
Yes. Unfortunately, right now, we are not able to recruit from Bangladesh. We are able to recruit from Mexico and the US, depending on the language pair. Ideally, it would be something that we can try to get to in the future, and we're always working on that. And if that ever does come about, then believe me, we will be reaching out.
Yeah. Once again, talking about changes. We never know. Things will change, probably, most likely. So for now, no, but who knows? Send us your application. And again, amnhealthcare.com/interpreters. All right, thank you. Elsa, what role does critical decision making and autonomy play in your work as a medical interpreter nowadays?
I think it's the very basis of everything. I think that if the interpreter isn't constantly thinking about, to me, it's non-maleficence and patient beneficence and balancing that with patient autonomy, that is the essence of just about every decision that we're making. And these are like microseconds in a session where you're deciding how to intervene without overstepping and without lacking where you should have stepped in. It's a nice balance.
Yeah, it's like the do no harm. Yeah, it's very, very strong. Yeah, and I've always said it, medical interpreters, I mean, we're not doctors, but we work alongside those doctors, so the same values should apply. Thank you. Sam, what piece of information do you look for when you're looking in the interviewing process that demonstrates that the candidate is familiar with the code of ethics?
Yes, so we look for quite a few different things during our interviewing process. At a couple of different points, you might be asked about what the role of the interpreter is, which is obviously something that impacts knowing the code of ethics. Additionally to that, we do go into scenario-specific things that could happen during the session. And what we're doing during that piece of the interview is we want to see, again, how you might handle these situations and how you're putting the code of ethics into practice.
Yes, thank you. We really dive deep. We ask those tough questions because we want to see how experienced you are. We have Victor Ramos, who's currently writing to us today from Costa Rica and is wanting to know, well, hoping that someday to be able to work with us. Sam, are we hiring from Costa Rica nowadays?
We currently do not have any openings in Costa Rica at the moment, but again, as you've heard us say, things are constantly changing around here, so that could be something that changes. As Natalia has said, please go ahead and still submit an application, and when things do come up again, that is going to be a fast way for us to know that you're interested, and we'll be able to still reach out.
Thank you. Thank you. Okay, so let's get on to the ongoing education and accuracy, which is a tough topic. So, Lorraine, one of the principles requires interpreter to commit to ongoing education. Always keep learning, always keep getting better. It's one of those things. So do you have any sort of recommendations you can share for interpreters to continue to develop their skills throughout their career?
Of course, I think Elsa mentioned that earlier. There's tons of companies out there that provide ongoing training. I was thinking about this, and I was thinking, if you're working in a language that perhaps you look around and go, there's not a lot of practice. I wanted to suggest, in medicine, the context matters. So understanding how doctors work, how nurses work, understanding the culture of healthcare can actually be an incredible asset as an interpreter, because even if you don't have a pair or somebody to work with that can help you work through the target language equivalents, you still have an understanding or a full picture of, okay, what does this mean? You understand what happens in session, and then you can make ethical decisions based on that. So my first recommendation is, don't feel limited by lack of language resources, but instead try to focus on healthcare as a whole, so that can give you all the contextual information that you know from that angle. That's one. And then another one is, there's so many ways to create glossaries, to connect with native speakers in the local community, just different ways to expand experiences in a way that is maybe less formal, but also maybe practical, so that you can, brush up with those skills that sometimes are required as interpreters. It isn't just terminology, it's also soft skills, and that can only be practiced through interacting with other people.
Yes, thank you. And well, that's the beauty of the internet too. Everything, Google, join those communities, get involved, get into the webinars, they're for free. So, I mean, there's a lot of things that you can access. Yeah, thank you. Thank you for sharing that. Elsa, let's talk about the principle of accuracy, which is also a pretty important one whenever you're interpreting. And so how does that play a role in your work as an interpreter, and how to ensure that the full message is getting across, even when something is implied but not necessarily said?
So I think the principle of accuracy is tremendous. And it's, in essence, what we do every day, right? The idea is that we are there to ensure that the communication is accurate. That's why we're there in the conversation, because oftentimes patients speak some English, understand a little bit of English, and so the language interpreter is there to ensure that communication. So there are situations with accuracy that require a little bit more knowledge. So, for example, in Latin America, there's the medication Dipirone, and Dipirone in the United States is not sold. It's off the market since the 70s, I believe, but it is known here as metamizole, and it's used in veterinary medication. It's not per se an NSAID, but sometimes it'll act like an NSAID, meaning it's like an anti-inflammatory property. And a lot of patients are allergic to this medication. And so this is knowledge that you acquire because you lived in the country, or because you've ran into this experience many times, or because you studied the medications that come up often in your sessions. And this is information that I offer up to doctors, because to me, it's part of the message that is said, but is being left unsaid. So when the patient says, I'm allergic to Dipirone, I believe it's on the interpreter to specify, this is the interpreter speaking, right, for the purpose of clarity, and then a brief and short explanation of the medication. And now that we have AI Scribe, the doctors love it, because as we're saying it, this is notated in their notes, and it's taken care of and already in the patient's medical history.
Yes, very important data, by the way. Yes, and that's where the interpreter, I think it's now, because I don't think it used to happen before, but now they do have the autonomy to decide and add whatever you're seeing that maybe nobody's picking up on that. Thank you. We have Daniel, who's currently watching us from Haiti, and he says we're doing a good job. So thank you very much, Daniel. We love to get good feedback. Thank you. We're very, very pleased. And I have Rewan here who wants to know, well, he's saying that he doesn't really have any sort of like work experience, but wants to get into the interpreting field. Maybe Lorena can help us with that. Like, what do you recommend? Any sort of internship or training?
Yeah, the first step is training. Interpreting isn't just about being bilingual. We've just talked about the code of ethics and how important it is for us to start by understanding the expectations. And then there's also the interpreting process. The interpreting process is very different than just speaking two languages. So my recommendation, everyone, would be to start with training. Online, there's various kinds. If you are unsure, I think the NCIHC provides a list, or CCHI. There's various organizations that provide ideas on where to start.
Yes, yes, thank you very much. And again, everything is available online. You just have to Google medical interpreter training courses, and you're going to get a lot of options for that. Sam, let's go to you. For those in the audience that are interested in working with us, can you share a few of the roles we're currently looking to fill?
Yes. So we are currently looking to fill roles for Spanish out of Mexico, Mandarin out of Mexico as well. And we do need Rohingya interpreters that are out of the US. So if you are for any of those language pairs, please don't hesitate and apply. Or if you know somebody as well that might be interested, please share the link with them, the amnhealthcare.com/interpreters, and have them apply as well.
Yes, yes, thank you very much. And we have Ayanda here who's currently watching us from South Africa. So thank you, Ayanda, for joining us today. We're very pleased. Yes, please let us know any questions you may have. We're happy to answer them. So let's talk about stories from the field. Lorena, from your time as an interpreter, can you tell me or share with the audience an example of a session when you had to interject because a cultural nuance or something was going on?
There's so many, but I think one that was impactful, it was a session that I received, and it was a patient who was at the hospital, and the hospital, the group of doctors had decided that there was nothing else that he could do. And so they wanted the family to meet with hospice services. And that process is unique in the United States, because here in the United States, hospice is a group of services. And there's coordination, and there's a coordinator that you actually meet with, and you talk about what the person's or the family's wishes are, and then they go from there. This particular session that I had, they had already tried to talk to the hospice coordinator, but they were refusing. And some of the family members were interpreting because they spoke English, but they didn't understand that that word hospice didn't mean a place. Right. So every time he interpreted hospice, which was the same thing in Spanish, the family members were like, no, we don't want to go to a place. We're not going to talk to you. So there was that confusion that it wasn't a group of services. They were thinking, oh, if we say yes, if we talk to this person at the hospital, they're going to automatically transfer from hospital to a place. And so as soon as I accepted the session, I could see that it was about hospice. And I just, before I started interpreting, asked, I just want to let you know, provide some contextual information. She is a hospice coordinator, and hospice in the US means a group of services. So she's going to tell you about those services. And then we continued, and it was almost like and as she started talking and we were interpreting, it was almost like the tension went down, because they realized that they could go home with their family member. Their family member could spend the rest of their days with them, but with the support of hospice services. So to me, that was so important, because everybody was frustrated, and it was such an important time in somebody's life to talk about how they wanted to spend what they had left, that because of a cultural nuance or a misunderstanding, there was so much distraction around it. So I felt incredibly privileged, and I didn't really do much. After I started interpreting, the family members decided that they could take it from there. And the nurse, accepted, and then they went from there. So I felt privileged that I was really there to clarify a healthcare concept that perhaps they were associating with just a place. So that was really meaningful to me.
Yeah, that was pretty impactful for them. I mean, that's one of the things that you say, like, yeah, that's the human factor. Only you were able to see that and you were able to interject. So yeah, that's one, again, medical interpreters. Yes. Okay, Elsa, can you give me an example of a time when you had to share relevant medical information for a patient just to ensure a desired outcome?
So in general, I think the knowledge of the medical system is really important. And when you have a patient that goes into a hospital or into a larger medical organization, there's a depression screening that gets asked every time. And it's standard and protocol. And oftentimes, because times are so short in appointments, the medical staff doesn't always say, these are questions that we have to ask everybody. This is our depression screening. They don't preface it. And when that happens, you get the patient kind of, they frown or they kind of like remove themselves a little bit. And there's this energy that's like, what about me is making you think that I'm having suicidal thoughts? What about me is making you think that I want to hurt someone else? And I think that in that moment, it's up to the interpreter. So the interpreter can either request and say, the interpreter would like to clarify or would like to ask for clarification that this is protocol so that the patient understands why we are asking these questions. And it's depending on the moment and the rush and the type of provider. Some providers will say, go ahead and explain. Some providers like to explain it themselves. And so when you provide that context, like, hey, these are questions that everybody's getting asked. This is a protocol. This is a depression screening. And it's part of everybody that will walk in will get asked these questions. Then they don't get so defensive and they're not wondering, what about me screams suicide or depression?
Yes, that's yeah. Just healthcare in itself works like that, but I mean, people don't really know. So again, the role of the interpreter to clarify. Very good. We have here Miriam, who's watching us from Pittsburgh. So hello, Miriam. Thank you for joining us. Sam, let's go to you. For those in the audience who have just joined, can you let them know how to apply, please?
Yes, you can apply at amnhealthcare.com/interpreters. There you'll be able to select the language pair that you're applying for and then submit your application that way. Just make sure, again, that you have your resume there during that process as well, so you can upload that.
Yes, and we like good resumes. This is my talent acquisition aspect coming out. Good resumes that show employment history with accurate dates and anything that is relevant to the profession and career. We really do appreciate it. Okay, so let's get to the final thoughts. Lorena, in your opinion, why is the Code of Ethics for Healthcare Interpreters important for the healthcare interpreting profession?
Oh, there's so many reasons. It's a core document. It establishes shared expectations. From not just internally the work that we do, but also those that interact with us. It also helps us because we work in this every day and we have to make decisions that are valued led. And so the Code of Ethics is that tool that gives us enough guardrails to know when something is outside of scope or outside of work, but it also gives us enough flexibility to know, hey, I have more than one way to meet this demand or this need in the session. How am I going to do it and what's best for this particular scenario? So it helps us to make decisions and it helps us to identify various ways that are acceptable ways to do it. So to me, the Code of Ethics is a foundational document in our work, and it really establishes what we aspire and what our work is all about.
Yes, and also I have always mentioned that it gives the interpreter tools. It's the tools that we have to be able to do our job well. Thank you. Elsa, what is your biggest takeaway from the Code of Ethics and Standards of Practice?
So I want to share a little story and then I'll share my takeaway. So I was in a session and a patient wanted non-hormonal birth control. And she specified that in her request to the nurse practitioner. The nurse practitioner, I'm not sure what her reasoning was. Maybe she's had bad experiences with patient, but she kept referring to hormonal birth control and going over the benefits and this, and she kept going on. And it was a back and forth for a little bit about the patient insisting on non-hormonal, the doctor talking about hormonal birth control. And this is where that critical decision-making and thinking about our code of ethics is where the interpreter kind of is put in a situation of, how do I use the principles, the ethical principles here? So non-maleficence, patient beneficence, and respect patient autonomy, right? And so I'm here in this situation, and I'm like, how much do I intervene? So in that moment, I decided to take on a little bit of a clarifier role. And so I said, I believe there's something is being missed in communication, and the interpreter would like to clarify. Spoke to the patient. The patient was very clearly and adamantly speaking of non-hormonal birth control. And I said, okay, because she keeps referring to hormones, and she's like, yeah, she's not getting me, kind of. And culturally, this patient would not question a nurse practitioner or a doctor because of the hierarchy that there is culturally. So I then relayed to the doctor. I said, it could be on the interpreter's lack or mistake, or I want to make sure that I'm rendering correctly what the patient is expressing. And I clarified that it was a non-hormonal that she was interested in. She had zero interest in hormonal medications. And with that really direct interjection was when the provider stopped. But she was really kind of, I don't know if she was in a rush. Sometimes that's the reason. Sometimes it's past experiences, but she wasn't really kind of listening. And so it was a very kind of delicate situation to balance. And so I guess that after that, it was more of knowing, I debriefed with my supervisor what happened. I wanted to make sure that what I did was correct, that I didn't overstep, right? And so I guess my biggest takeaway from the code of ethics is know your principles, make the decisions in your sessions based on these principles. And if you have a situation where you're unsure, debrief it with someone that you trust, whether it's a colleague or a supervisor, and then learn from the experience. And so that's, I think, how you get better and better at practically applying the code of ethics.
Yes, thank you. And that was very good because you actually were able to advocate for what the patient was asking for, which is in the end a very important factor of what we do. Yes, thank you. Wonderful. We have, let's see, Mariam is asking here that she has applied many times for Urdu, Punjabi, and Hindi. Again, amnhealthcare.com/interpreter. Sometimes we're not really looking for those languages, but we have openings coming up at any moment, so we never know. And Daniel wants to know if at any moment we're going to be having openings for court interpreters. Sam, do you want to take this one?
Yeah. So as of right now, that's not something that we are going to be expanding into. For AMN Language Services specifically, we mostly focus on that medical interpretation. So about 98, 99% of the calls we typically receive are just going to be focused in that medical area.
Thank you. And once again to you, Sam. What is your last piece of advice for candidates who are interested in working with AMN?
So, as Natalia was saying earlier, your resume is the biggest piece of information. This is your intro to us without us actually formally meeting you and talking to you. So, best thing you can do for yourself is submit a clear, concise, professional resume listing all of your experiences for interpreting in English. Additionally to that, make sure that you're listing your language pairs. There's a lot of you guys out there that speak multiple languages. Even if it's a language that we may not be asking for right now, or we may not be having right now, we could launch a new language. And then if that gets launched, you might be the first person that we reach out to. So listing all of your language pairs, making sure your resume is clear, concise, double checking that your own personal information on there, your email, your phone number, all of that stuff is correct. That is going to be the quickest way for us to get a hold of you when we do come across that resume.
Yes, that's the introduction letter. Thank you. Thank you. Well, that brings us to the end of our show. Seriously, thank you very much to our great panel. It was a hard topic. It's a very complicated one and a very important one, by the way, but you are the expert. So thank you very much for sharing your knowledge. And to the folks at home, once again, thank you for being here with us. We love having you come. We love to hear from you, your comments, your questions, and taking the time to invite you for the next one. The next one is going to be in May, the third Wednesday of the month. So we will be here with a hot new topic and a great guest panel again. Thank you. Thank you for coming, and it has been a pleasure. Thank you.